post on the website for people to look at a later date if they'd like. And we're going to kind of just tag team and talk about what's happening in our return to campus update. So thank you. Ms. Hawkins is going to advance the slides for us, and I'm going to begin. Go to the next slide. So tonight we're going to be talking about our decision-making process during COVID-19, what the steps that are involved. We're going to discuss and share some of the stakeholder feedback that we've received. It's not complete yet, but we wanted to give you a snapshot for this point in time. We're then going to talk about the COVID-19 relief funds, and then just where we are and what are the next steps. Okay. So in our decision-making process, we start with the California Department of Public Health and the CDE issued directives. So we kind of start with the directives that are coming from on high. They then filter down through the San Mateo County Office of Education and the San Mateo County Health Department. And then they set rules for us at the county level. Some of the rules differ county to county. And then finally, we at the district level come up with plans and set our own rules for locally. And then of course we have those board approved. Next slide. Okay. Well, I think there was a slide. Did you skip the slide? Maybe not. Nope, okay. So just to give a little timeline, Trustee Saladin referenced this. We do want to make sure that we are being clear and informing people, but we have been working on things all along and planning for return to in-person instruction all along. We thought we'd give just a little bit of a snapshot of how it's gone. So last spring of 2020, we went into emergency distance learning, sort of on a dime. It was shelter in place. We began experiencing this pandemic. During the summer, staff and administrators worked really throughout the summer planning for distance learning instruction. We've started off planning for hybrid instruction in the fall and then realized that that wasn't going to be the case. And so we pivoted to, okay, we're going to do distance learning instruction really well. And then in the fall, we adopted the distance learning plan. And we said, we aren't going to come back. We know we are asserting that we won't come back in the first semester so that we can really focus our attention on distance learning. In October, there was a presentation to the board regarding returning to school in small groups and a hybrid instruction plan and athletics. At that time, the decision was made to kind of hold off and remain in distance learning. And then we brought it back in December and the board made the decision to return to school in small groups. We received board approval for that. Since December, we then said, okay, here's where we are now. The next step is getting our hybrid plan in place and figuring out all of the moving parts that will take. And so we started working on that in December. And as time has gone on, you'll see in the most recent section of the slide, vaccinations are here. We are, I think 40% of our staff is vaccinated, a little over 40% at least has their first vaccination. There are lower infection rates. And then there are policy shifts from the federal government, from the state government that all kind of contribute to where we are now. So where we are now is that February 2nd and 23rd, we discussed athletics. As you know, last week, the board approved a return to athletics for season 2 and for football. So here we are on March 2nd. We are giving an update about return to school. We are going to have a little discussion tonight, and we're going to share with you a snapshot of where we are. We're not going to give lots of details because we haven't negotiated everything with our union. We are in negotiations, and we don't have every detail worked out. But what we do plan is to bring back to you on March 16th a fully fleshed out plan for discussion for return to school and hybrid instruction. What you will see on tonight's agenda, though, is, that's not true. On March 16th, you will have the MOU for return to school in small groups with some amendments. And so that's coming this semester. Returning to in-person instruction in small groups is coming this semester. Okay, next slide, please. All right. So we thought we would just share some examples of decisions related to COVID. One example of a decision is the California governor ordering kindergarten to grade 2 to return by April 1st. This was a new direction and a new order, and that was a decision related to COVID. Another decision is this County Office of Ed instituting a pandemic recovery framework. Another example of a decision was when we here in our school district determined that it's safe to condition and play athletics. So every day, every month, we are making new decisions, and different groups are making decisions that affect other groups. Next slide, please. Okay, so part of returning to on-campus instruction and bringing employees back includes feedback. And so what we've done is we have surveys out for both staff and parents and guardians and students, really kind of sussing out where the temperature is right now. Thank you. So there's a staff survey. The goal of the staff survey was really to help us in planning for our return. The goal in the student survey is to anticipate the number of students who are willing to return based on the tier levels. So we did not share the exact same surveys. We were asking some different questions that are going to help us in our plan for return. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Ms. Baca to share the family survey.
Good evening, everyone. So I'd like to let you know that last week, February 25th, a survey was sent out via email and text message to 11,861 students and families regarding their comfort level on returning to campus for hybrid instruction. The survey was sent from the district level, and it was also advertised through social media. We also asked our site administrators to send a survey to their families during their weekly communication. So the survey is still open until Friday, March 5th, but I would like to share some preliminary results as of last night. So as of last night, we had 1,880 participants with 707 students and 1,173 parents and guardians. So this is unduplicated. So as you can see, there's about 17% participation rate for students and 28% parent participation rate. So this chart right here, when looking at this chart, this is a combined responses from stakeholders, so both parents and students. So as you can see, the purple one means that I do not feel comfortable, the gray one means I do not feel comfortable returning to in-person during the spring semester. And then the orange one is they are comfortable in returning during the orange tier. The red one is they're comfortable during the red tier, yellow is yellow tier, and then in-person now is purple. So just looking at this right now, about 19% are ready to start right now. So if this is a representation of how our stakeholders feel, about 19% are ready to return right now. But please consider that we are actually in the red level right now. So there's that additional about 10% of people that are willing to return. So that's about 30% of people. So it's a combination of the purple and red tier. I also would like to point out that about 38% of our stakeholders do not feel comfortable returning at all in person. Next slide, please. So I separated the students and the parents' responses. So on the left-hand side is the participation rate, and then on the right-hand side is the number of responses per school site. So with the district level program, there were only 2 responses, and half are, one person is comfortable coming back in orange, and then one person did not want to come back at all this semester. So with Jefferson High School, there were 234 participants, and that's about 18% of their student population. And 32% responded that they would be willing to return in the current conditions. And again, this is purple and red. But again, that's only about 74 students, and 79 students said they do not want to return this semester. Oceana had 152 student participants, which is about 26% of their student population, and 27% would be comfortable returning. Terra Nova had 108 participants, which is about 15% of their population, and 43% would be comfortable returning. Only 2 Thornton students participated, and none of them are comfortable in returning. Westmore had 209 participants, and 14% are willing to return. Next slide, please. So here are the parent and guardian responses. Again, we're looking at the red and the purple. And so for the district programs, again, none of them are ready to return at this point in the purple level, but one person said that they would be willing to come back in the red level. So for Jefferson High School, that's 25% total saying that they would be willing to come back. At Oceana, it's 27%. Of the parents would be willing to send their students back on campus. And that's the same exact percentage as the students. So they mirror the percentage. At Terra Nova, 46% of the parents are willing to send their students back during purple or red. At Thornton, it's 26%. And then at Westmore, it's 20%, which is actually 6% more than the students willing to come back. And that is all I have.
Good evening, everyone. So we have worked with our employee union, AFT 1481, to construct surveys for classified and certificated staff. The goal was to identify staff who want to offer in-person services to students right away, regardless of tier. We also wanted to identify the biggest concerns staff may be facing in returning so that we can continue to address all their concerns. This survey was not done to determine whether we will return, but so that we can plan our return. Some of the concerns that we have seen were staff members living with fragile people living within their household, no access to vaccination yet because the rollout's kind of slow, childcare and daycare issues, and proper ventilation. In the slide, you'll see that we do have 43% who've had the vaccine, at least one of the vaccines. And the staff is working diligently to try to get access to these vaccines. Next is Tina.
Good evening, everyone. Next slide. Thank you. Okay, so for the COVID relief funding, if you go to the state website and click on our school district, it shows that we have been allocated $4.17 million. I wanted to point out that we only found out about 1.4 million of that on the same day that that graphic was posted on just about 2 weeks ago. So of this $4.17 million, we've only actually received $2.3 million, but we have authorization to spend up to the whole amount, provided we have the cash flow available, which we do. And so far, we have spent about 1.8 million on supporting distance learning. Next slide. For supporting distance learning, about 50% has gone to technology and software licenses. So really 100% supporting distance learning, like all of the devices, hotspots, Chromebooks, laptops for teachers, and then the software that we have purchased so that we can have a more robust distance learning experience experience. The next largest portion is the child nutrition. We have had to subsidize the child nutrition program to keep it functioning during the pandemic, and it has provided much support to our community. We also have been spending money on supporting or having staff do extra work during this time. So the staff time in support of distance learning and return to school is a variety of meetings that teachers and other staff have been attending, as well as extra time spent in online support for students like APEX and in overtime for classified staff. And then we did provide a small stipend to teachers and classified staff to try to offset some of the expenses that they have had in obtaining materials for working from home. Some examples of the way that we've spent the money. We've done a lot of training. Staff members have been, we have 15 staff members trained now in community resilience. In the community resilience model, we had district-wide trauma-informed professional development, as well as some distance learning professional development. And then this shows all of the devices we have purchased. And we've been averaging about 500 meals served a day on average to our community. So we just found out yesterday that there is more money being allocated from SB 86. SB 86 will provide us an additional $3 million. We're not exactly sure when we're going to receive the money, but we have authorization to spend it now. Additionally, if we bring back special populations, which are our small groups, and at least one grade level by April 1st, we would qualify for an additional 1.4 million. So that is, if we didn't get the 1.4 million, that is an additional 4.4 million that we just found out about in the last 2 weeks. And if we do get it, it would be 5.8 million total that they have just let us know about in the last 2 weeks. And by the way, this additional relief here is all Prop 98 money, which means that it is money that has to go to schools in some form. And because the economy is doing better than expected in California, they're able to allocate this money from what would go to schools anyway in Prop 98. Next slide. In addition to the funds received from the state, we have also received support in the form of PPE. We've received numbers of masks and also face shields, hand sanitizer, and some gloves. So all of this is on site now, and we'll be able to use it when and if we return. And I will pass it back to Ms. Presta.
Thank you. So where we are now, we just kind of wanted to give you an update of what's happening. We are going to be bringing the MOU for small group instruction back to the board on March 16th because we have amendments. It will be for small group instruction for students with most needs, and it will be determined by each site. So it might be English learners, it might be students with IEPs, it might be students who are disengaged. It could encompass all of those students and more. We are going to have a quicker return than what we had originally planned. The return speed is increased. First week, 10%, second week, 10 to 25%. The color will be different. And the process for that is that we are in final stages negotiating this MOU with AFT, with our union. We will bring it back on March 16th for board approval, and then of course for county approval. Next slide, please. And we put this on a slide to just make it very clear. It's our hope that we will return to campus this semester in some form for all students who are ready to return. We will be on campus in the fall for in-person instruction in some form. I have heard comments that have been out there in the community that we might not be back in the fall, that students might still be distance learning in the fall. And we feel certain that there will be in-person instruction. We don't know what that will look like because we don't know what the fall looks like. But so it might be hybrid, we might start in hybrid. We don't know exactly, but we are assuring you that there will be on-campus instruction in the fall. And when our students come back to school, hybrid is going to look very different. It's not going to look like school looked, last February. There will be social distancing, no cafeteria style lunch, no rallies, no socializing in the halls. It's going to be limited interaction, but we do think that the social interaction just by being there will still be really good for our kids. Next slide. One of the things that we are currently talking about is what that hybrid model for instruction will look like. So one model that many schools and districts are using, the phrase that many people call it is room and Zoom. So some students are in the room, some students are on Zoom. They're all interacting with the teacher through the computer. It's the same lesson for everyone in the classroom and at home. So we like to call that room and Zoom. And then another model that we might adopt is synchronous, asynchronous. So synchronous lessons for the students that are in person and asynchronous for the ones at home, and then they switch. Synchronous for the ones at home and asynchronous for the students in person. So basically there's two different lessons going on, one for the kids at home and one for the kids at school. So two models. We have not decided on which, and that's part of what we're still working on finalizing. The next steps, as I've said, is at that March 16 board meeting, we will bring back the MOU for small group instruction, and we're adding to it a staff return to on-site working. We will also bring for the board our return to school in-person hybrid model plan, fully fleshed out. I want to just mention that we've gotten some good input on, making sure that we're posting things on our website. So we are going to be updating. We already have updated our website with a lot of the COVID-19 info. We're going to keep doing, keep adding more and updating as we get new information. And I also just want to remind everybody that we now, I have been sending home weekly updates every Friday. I try to get them out by noon. And so please check your email, families and staff, because we do update that. I thought I corrected that hanging 4 at the end, but I didn't. So check social media as well for updates on COVID-19. Thank you very much. We know that this was sort of a lot of information at once. We intended to do just a couple of slides for you, and decided that we wanted to take the opportunity to really make sure that we gave a lot of info. So you can find this, we will put this presentation up on our website so that you can look at it at a later date. And just want to thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Presta. Open it up to board for comments, questions, discussion. And I know there are a lot of people in attendance for public comment. We'll take all those during the public comment time after we get through this. Oh, Ms. Archipinti.
Thank you, President Lee. Yes, thank you for the presentation and the prompts movement on this. Obviously, there's been a lot in the news, and of course, just in policy in terms of changes in the last few weeks. We've seen a lot at the federal and state level in terms of commitment of resources. Just to echo what my colleagues have been saying earlier in the meeting, just reminding ourselves, and in the presentation, it was outlined in the timeline, we've been moving at the pace of where we should be in terms of public health and in terms of education, ensuring the best we can. In lieu of having any in-person learning, just that kind of instruction you can't replace online. Some students will do better than others. Many have been struggling, of course, with issues around mental health. I think all of us can't wait to create a new normal and re-envision the kind of things we want to do in reopening society in a better way. And so in step with building back better and everything that our government is trying to do at every level, at the school board level, we have taken on a lot. And I just want to extend my appreciation to all of our staff and community who have stepped up in that time and that space to provide food, through food distribution, to provide volunteer services on any level. And of course, getting us to this place right now. It's not just a moment, but of course a movement. And our movement at this point as a school district is to work in step with where we are going in the state of California. And this does speak to the plan that we had in place and moving with the pace that we're reopening at. So that said, I do appreciate some of the feedback we've gotten from the community. I don't think that we disagree that we want to reopen schools, but I do look forward to that discussion. I just wanted to ask a couple of things, or at least know a couple of things that the state has committed. I think it's 6.6 billion statewide, but of course every district's getting different amounts. Oakland Unified and San Francisco Unified have also been, of course, incentivized the same way if they can reopen by April 1st. That is a day and a deadline that not every district is going to adhere to or necessarily, I guess, aim for, depending on the support that we're getting locally. And so my question would be, in terms of vaccinations and rollout, where are we, I guess, based on prior resources we've received from the county and the state in terms of ramping up vaccine, access to vaccines and distribution sites in our area, in North San Mateo County, and where are we in terms of having the same access that the rest of the county is having in terms of healthcare agencies distribute and register people, and of course all those things that come with really having a strong support for our community and our students, especially our athletes who are already beginning to participate. So if anybody has an update on that.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So I want to actually call out County Superintendent Nancy McGee. She's done a stellar job, frankly, with vaccinations. At least a month ago, school district superintendents throughout the county started the discussion about how will we prioritize our educator vaccines once they get here, because they were slow in coming. And so we had discussions prioritizing school districts with higher unduplicated counts. And what that means is higher numbers of people that are lower socioeconomics, really the communities that are hardest hit by this COVID-19 pandemic. And those districts sort of had priority over districts that didn't have those high numbers. And then within the districts, there were priorities that were teachers that were teaching already in person, and staff members that are working already in person on the front lines and have been all along. And so those people were prioritized first and so on. So we had a really good plan already laid out. Then what happened was the federal government, thankfully, FEMA came in with with vaccinations that we weren't expecting. So that was a really, really wonderful boost. And so once we got the vaccinations at the county level, we had already had many of our employees vaccinated over at the Oakland Coliseum from FEMA. So what it looks like now is that, as you saw, over 40% of our staff members who have been vaccinated with at least the first vaccination. Many have had the second. I want to also call out Alyssa Jenkins. She's a one-person show signing people up for vaccinations. People are emailing me saying, I've been trying, I can't get on. And Alyssa said, please share my name with people. So we've messaged it out, and I've individually reached out to Alyssa to say, can you help this person? And she gets them a vaccine appointment. So I want to call out Kareem Baca and April Hawkins and Doreen and Candace Bell. There's so many people who have been involved in maintaining the vaccination list, our employee list, because what happens is we've prioritized, and I'm seeing other shout outs in the chat. We've prioritized certain groups, and then what happens is we email them, the district emails them, the county office emails them, and then they get the invitation. So many people are trying to call and email so that they don't miss that invitation to make their appointment. And this weekend, I think I was messaging out that there were appointments at Seton that popped up. And I want to thank Kalima. Kalima texts me on the weekend and says, okay, there's some spots open over here. And so I'm messaging it out to people. And on one hand, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm peppering people with emails and communications. But I have heard from staff members, no, thank you. We're happy for you to send us this information at whatever time. If it comes out at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night, it's okay, we're on it. So there really are multiple ways to get vaccinations at this point. Kaiser's opening up now this week. So if you're a Kaiser member, you can get your own appointment through Kaiser. And we also are going to have a county vaccination site through Kaiser. So there are many avenues right now. There's the FEMA avenue, Seton, Kaiser, and what we're doing at the school district level is working very, very closely with the county office. I want to call out Patricia Love along with Nancy McGee, who's just, they must not sleep, because I know how much we're interacting with them, and we're just one of 24, 25 school districts in the county. So what I am told is that we believe that we will have all educators vaccinated within the next 4 weeks. So that's what I'm told. Of course, we can't guarantee that, but it looks like we are on that path. And I believe that in just 2 weeks, having over 40% of our people vaccinated that want to be. Well, actually, it's 40% of our people. Not all of our staff will want to be vaccinated. We encourage everybody to be vaccinated, of course, but it's up to them. So I think that's answered the question.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Presta. I see Trustee Abizaraya, you've got your hand up.
So yesterday, the Student Advisory Council came up with a statement regarding the return to school plan. And then we also addressed the possibility of, because it was brought to our attention that extending the school year might be an option. So we addressed that in our statement as well. So I'm just going to read the statement right now. So we, the Student Advisory Council, feel that the implementation of a return to school plan should prioritize certain groups of students, such as special education students and students at risk of failing, rather than try to get all students back on campus. In the case that an extension of the school year is proposed, we oppose such a proposal because extending the school year would be overwhelming due to its condensed and accelerated structure. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other feedback from members of the board? Ms. Aludin.
Yes, so I want to thank everyone for the presentation and the initial information. I'm hoping that this will be continued and ongoing, especially an update on the survey. So a couple of things that I do want to say is that just continuing my focus on how do we stay safe, how do we be safe, and the things that I do have purview and control over, is that we always know that when the county has prioritized business first, economy first. So every time we go down the red, they immediately open up businesses. And every time they do that, the case rate goes up. So I know parents that have reached out to us have said we're more than willing to help. And one of those ways that we can help is that if we don't need to do something, let's try not to do it. Let's try to maintain social distancing. And I know it's hard not to go out, to visit a restaurant, to do all these things. But keeping the case rate down is a priority. I know a lot of folks say that the data shows that schools don't contribute to spread, but I feel like that is not based on really reliable data because we don't test students anywhere on a regular and reliable basis. So it's really hard to track where that spread is happening and whether it's coming from the home or from the school, because it's usually following the adults and it's not following the students. but there has been new data that says that when spread is high in a community, that it does, schools do contribute to spread. And so one of the ways that we can make sure that we don't do that is to keep the case rate down and to really be diligent, as it was said before, and wearing masks, having people around you wear masks, continue to follow all the guidelines that are going to keep us safe. The other thing that could help keep us safe is testing. That's one of the reasons why I advocated so hard to get the testing site at the district office. And then I continue to run the site at Jefferson for people who don't have a car and need to walk up, is so that our student and parent community could test on a regular basis. It's no cost to you. And while it is utilized by some people in our district, it's not to the level that I would be comfortable. I would love to see everyone that's involved in the JUHSD community get tested at minimum every 2 weeks. If we could have people test and voluntarily share their results, we would be able to track and pivot so that if we do see an outbreak happening, we could react if a school is open and take precautionary measures to keep people safe. One of the things that we do not have in this county that other counties have, but the county now uses the LA Times, which is a whole other story, is that getting infection rate data by zip code. So we can't even get infection rate data from our own county, from our area. I have to go to the LA Times to get it, and I don't know if there's a delay in that information or not, so that we can have a better idea of what the spread is like. And if we need to take reaction, say if the spread is happening in one zip code versus another, we can take precautionary measures in the zip code that that school is in. But we can't do that if not enough people are testing. And there's been a dramatic drop in testing because everyone is saying, well, we have a vaccine. Even people, I talked to people who said, well, I'm not going to take the shot, but other people are taking the shot, so I don't need to be tested. That is not the case. So I'm hoping that, more people will get tested, especially those that want to have their kids back on campus in hybrid, that you will proactively just start having yourselves and your family tested on a regular basis. The last thing that I do want to talk about is just the lift that is. So one of the reasons why I didn't support hybrid in the winter was because I knew we were going to close, because I knew the surge was coming, because every expert said the surge was going to come. And we're not like a restaurant. It is extremely hard to open, close as a school district. The other lift that's also really heavy is teaching in a hybrid format, so that's going to be a hard transition. So I would also just ask for grace for our teachers and our staff, that when we do move into hybrid, that's another learning curve that's going to need to happen, and that we all just need to be patient with everybody, because the continued ask on the teachers and staff is, everybody's mental health is important to me. And I do understand the mental health issues that are happening with students and parents staying home, but I also understand the mental health issues with the continual changes and pivots that our teachers and staff have to go through. So I'm asking that everybody has grace with each other while we get through this, and try to find the best pathway forward for all of us. Because as you can see from the survey results, we are not on the same page. Everybody is in a different place. But for all of us, while we try to find a way, the best way forward in service to the breadth of needs that happens in the community that has such large gaps in resources, job, housing, etc. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Trustee Murphy.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to add something. I know we've been talking about this for a while now, but I just wanted to say something. This is something I've been thinking about for a couple days now. And it's the fact how I know a lot of the concerns we're having with return to school right now deal with who's coming back, when we're coming back, and how we're going to facilitate that. And some of the nitty gritty details about, um, you know, how people are going to move through hallways, how many people we're going to have in a classroom at a time. I know some of that stuff hasn't necessarily been the focus as of right now, but it's still things that need to be thought about. And I was thinking, every, can you still hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry, stuff froze a little bit. Every school district in the nation has had or is working on their own return to school plan. And I think, I've heard a lot about, a lot of people in our community are arguing that we should go back because private schools in our community have gone back. And, that doesn't take into account funding and resources and stuff like that. But I also don't think that we should completely ignore the return to school plans of other districts, private, public, California or not, because it feels like we have a lot of work to do. And if some of that work is, if we can collaborate with other school districts, yes, maybe we can't afford everything that the private schools can, but if they have some sort of procedure for how they run their classrooms that we can implement in our district, we can take the bits and pieces that work for us. And I think, we have to start being more collaborative with our community and outside of our community, other school districts, wherever they are, who are having success returning with whatever plan they have. Because it feels like we are on our own, but we are kind of all in this together. Everyone is trying to get back to school across the country. And if we're having trouble figuring something out, I bet someone else has found a solution. And I think it's important that we don't write off entire, districts because they have more funding. I think we should try and, reuse and recycle whatever we can find to make our job easier.
Great, thank you, Mr. Murphy. Ms. Presta, you want to respond?
Yeah, I just want to, I don't want to have a big long discussion, but I do want to say you're right. And we have, and sometimes Ms. Bacchus says, well, I saw in, Indianapolis, I'm joking, I don't know where, but she's oftentimes finding school districts across the country. So many of us, I'm always talking with the county high school superintendents. In fact, we have a weekly meeting, and this is the very thing. I get lots and lots of ideas from them, and we talk with our peers. Ms. Basuino's talking with her peers at student services, and Ms. Bacchus talking with her peers in educational services, and Ms. Van Rapport's in business. So we are talking, and that's a really good suggestion, and we are taking it because we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Presta. Are there any other comments from other trustees or questions? All right, then I will jump with a couple of questions. First, just my statement. Thank you for the presentation, very helpful. And I'm grateful that we will have this on the website and that the data will be updated as the new data comes in. The other thing, with what the 1,880 who have responded so far, that's 15.8% of the total. So to make every effort to make sure we get as many as we can. And every single push, and which also leads to the question: how are we, making sure that some of our underserved populations are making sure that they are getting counted as well and participating in the survey? I know that's always the big question mark for districts like ourselves. So that's one piece. The other thing, and this is probably for Ms. Van Rapport, how are we intending to spend the balance of the 4.17 million so far, and probably even the 3 million? And then the second part to that is, how likely are we to get some portion of the 1.4 million, by April 1st? I know there's like a discount for every day that you go beyond that. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll take the last part first. The discount is 1% per day that you don't open. So the 1.4 million means that it's $14,000 a day that you don't open, it goes down. And then I think the maximum is 30 days. And then they cut you off that you can't have any of that 1.4 million. The rest of it is really under discussion. It's going to be part of our return to school plan. And then we also will need to understand that this may be it. So we also want to talk about how are we going to mitigate the issues that students are going to be coming with when they do return full-time. Do we need to expand summer school? Do we need to offer more after-school programming? Do we need to expand our wellness programs? There are an infinite number of things that our community, our students will need. So none of that, I shouldn't say none, but very little of that is actually designated at this time. There's, I think, a few more equipment purchases and a few more software licenses that may be pending payment, but most of the money, the lion's share of the money, is really for our future planning.
Okay. So would it be safe to say that on the 16th, you'll probably have budget items related to that spend, more than likely?
Some of them, it would be part of the return to school plan, yes.
Okay.
But
Okay.
And then we'll talk about it then for the parts that we don't have plans for, because I do think it'll be important to take a long view at some of this.
Completely agree. Okay, great, thank you. Are there any other comments before I wrap this up? We'll move it on. And again, like I said, we'll take all the public comments as soon as we get past the consent items.
Just really quickly, I know that the survey results may be shocking to some, but I think that we just also need to talk about the lived experiences of each of us and where we live, and that COVID has affected the lived experience drastically. And I know that if I wasn't running the COVID testing site, I would not have a much clearer picture of how devastating it was for certain areas of our school district. And, having so many people return to the site that had tested positive because they didn't know where to go, and seeing whole families, and then also people coming back and just because they just want to say thank you for having the testing site, but also talking about the father they lost, or the brother they lost, or the sister they lost, or the mother they lost. So, the survey results aren't surprising to me because some of our community has been really devastated by COVID. And other parts of our community, and I include myself in that, I've been very fortunate. No one in my family has gotten COVID. No one in my family has passed away from COVID. I've been able to stay home and relatively safe. So it's been really further removed. So I just think we all need to think about those things and how people are reacting to the possibility of coming back to school.
Right. Completely agree. And it's that measure of grace we all need for each other, because we do have a very diverse school community and diverse cities that we represent. So if there's nothing else,